thank you for joining us. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter, noted comic book anthropologist, and myself, Hannibal Tabu, head comics reviewer at bleedingcool.com. Every week we join together on Clubhouse and then rebroadcast on YouTube with all kinds of opinions, thoughts, considerations, and punditry even about this week's comic books that came out. This is all courtesy of the It's Complicated Club here on Clubhouse. You can click the greenhouse over my head if you'd like to join. And let's jump into it. These are for reviews are for books that came out on November 3rd, 2021. And Stanford, are we ready to begin?
Yep.
All right. Who will we bestow upon them the gift of our commentary?
I think we'll start with Marvel. They got a new movie coming out this week. They've got like everyone's talking about them. So let's pile on.
Yeah, I'll let it go that I wasn't invited to the premiere. It's okay. I don't mind. It's fine seeing all my friends' pictures there. It's cool. It's cool.
Bitter much? I mean, I'm going to be honest. I mean, this is kind of a side note, but I'm getting really intrigued by all of this commentary about Chloe Zhao and about how oh my gosh, you got this independent director. What's it like for her to do this? Oh my gosh, is Marvel being too not allowing its directors to have independent visions? Like all this like critique of the Marvel movies. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, there's a person I do hate to quote, but there was I try to take wisdom where I can get it, and I would ask, how you gonna hate from outside the club? That people telling Marvel how to make money is like people telling black people how to be cool, or like telling Lando Calrissian how to sleep with literally everything that's not nailed down. That's not logical. It's like, do you have a franchise running $22+ billion or something? Then what do you even talk about? You don't know? What do you seriously? Who asked you? Who asked you? Shutting up is free. Because another rap line I like to quote. It says, "I don't understand people who talking with short money. I don't get it.
Well, I think it's funny. I mean, part of the reason I brought it because it's like I was on Facebook and someone was questioning. Had one of those articles about the Marvel method, and I was thinking to myself, it's like the same thing you did. It's like who's had a franchise this successful?
Ever.
If this movie is not number one in the box office, that'll be a record. That'll be a first for Marvel, right? But it's not just that. But I think it's interesting that like one of the things about comic books is it's a highly collaborative process, right?
Yes.
In which like artists and writers they all have to like submit themselves to the process.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting that you've got a movie house essentially they're not just translating the comic books, they are translating the comic book process where like where we forcing, and in the process forcing us to look at movies where there are experts in doing special effects and letting them shine, where the director is a cog in the machine as opposed to the machine, right? And to me that's very comic booky.
You're not wrong. That's an interesting take. I mean, there have been, of course, franchises before. The Star Wars universe is well known for doing this sort of thing, and it's also interesting that Disney bought both of them. And Disney was like, "Oh yeah, we do that. Come on in."
Right.
This is not an uncommon process in enormously successful, enormously financially rewarded outlets. This is how money is made. So. Yeah, that's why. I mean, and you've heard many times me compliment Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler was like, "No, I don't mind. I'm happy to draw within the lines. I have no problem. You need me to fit between this Rocky movie and that Rocky movie, and the continuity has to be perfect and it has to all make sense. Sure, no problem. Oh wait, you need me to make a movie that fits the perfect timeline of Oscar Grant Jr.'s murder while not going against contradicting any points of the data? Sure, I can do that, and I can do it with an enormous degree of artistic greatness." So,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I also think what's interesting is that if you think about some of the people who complain most about Marvel, these are people who are used to being the machine as opposed to working with others.
Yes. And
And I think that says a lot right there, right? These are people who don't. I mean, and I think that you can also look at Marvel versus the DC movies, right? The
yes.
DC movies are basically taking the position of let the directors go wild, right? And look at what's it getting them, as I take another sip of my rum. You know
Well,
what I mean? It's like, and it's great because it really is. We're seeing the Marvel method on film, and we're seeing the full script DC method on film, and we see what's successful.
well, here's the thing, because I don't ever want to say that money equals greatness, because we have, of course, the music of Britney Spears. Great performer, not the best musician. But with that said, you know, making movies is not a satisfying the fans' interest. It's not a thing of making sure that every troll on Twitter and every YouTube commenter is happy with what happened. It's about how much money did we make. That's what it's for. And when you look at your what's the Villeneuve guy who did Dune, or if you look at Martin Scorsese, with all due respect, these are not people who have made a lot of money the same way. They've made money, absolutely. They've made enormously artistically strong works, but they're not in the blockbuster business. They're not in the Steven Spielberg, George Lucas business. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, creators of the modern blockbuster. If Martin Scorsese could have made a movie that made $1 billion, he would have done it already. He hasn't, and he won't, because it's not a club that he knows how to get into. It's not a club where he has any past, and every criticism he has sounds like sour grapes.
Well, I agree with you on that. I also think that there's something else here, which is what makes a good superhero movie, right? And what makes comics great. You
Right.
know, part of what makes comics great is it's not just the story in the floppy comic. It's that story in the floppy comic is connected to a bigger world. It is continuity, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you're gonna so that's like I think that's one of the secret sauces of like why a superhero movie is so successful, because we're not just looking at Superman, we're looking at the world that Superman is in.
Yes.
And so if you start thinking it through that way, that's where this method of not letting the director being the machine is important, because yeah, you could say, well if you'd done this one thing and this one thing by this director, maybe it would have been better, right? But it would have been disconnected from the bigger world.
Absolutely.
And people are not just coming to see Captain America, they're coming to see the world that has Captain America and the Avengers and all this other stuff. They're coming to see a world where an Asgardian god and a master of the mystic arts and a super patriot and a tech guy could all hang out together and fight evil.
Yep.
And to create that world, you're going to have to trim all the other worlds just to get them to fit together.
True.
DC doesn't understand that. DC doesn't understand that as cool as it might be to make this little short-term gain, right, of indulging this particular editor, long-term it prevents them from having a cohesive slate. And because we're not looking at Superman as a franchise, or at least you shouldn't be. You should be looking at the DCU as a franchise.
Yes. Yes. But,
And that's
yeah.
what
Okay.
Disney understands with Marvel. Is that the franchise is Marvel. The franchise is not Doctor Strange. It's not Iron Man. It's not Captain America. It's Marvel.
Yeah, yeah, and brand over IP is part of the cohesiveness. It's part of, well, let me put it this way: when you walk into a Marvel movie, you know there's probably going to be a big third act with a big, ridiculous, special effects heavy destruction that has some emotional resonance based upon things that were introduced in the first act. That's going to happen, and that's fair. Is that formulaic? Absolutely. Is it amazing? Absolutely. There's no reason that it can't be both. And as such, and I say this again, having not seen The Eternals, it's the only one Marvel movie I have not seen yet. That you know the criticisms. Well, let me put it this way: Stanford, you're an anthropologist, right?
Right.
I am not an anthropologist, am I?
Nope.
So if I came to your job and started telling you, Stanford, you're doing this anthropology all wrong. What you need to do is this. You know how dumb I would sound?
You wouldn't sound dumb, but you'd make us all laugh.
You'd be laughing because I would sound dumb. If I came into your job and said, let me show you how to anthropology, that would not
Yeah.
make
And I think but I think that's what's interesting is I just think that we're really caught up in in sort of Marvel hate, and I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of the Marvel universe, but I respect the fact that they have had that many blockbusters. I respect everything that they've done. Do I love every movie? No. Do I think that? But do I think that that means? Do I think that that means that we need to be talking about the death of the superhero, all that kind of stuff? Hell no.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would put it this way before we should move on to the actual comics that we're supposed to discuss. That when there's a phrase that has become, unfortunately, something people take as gospel. Your guess is as good as mine. People believe that that's true. People believe that their ignorance and that their lack of experience and that their opinion is as valid as the experience of someone who's really done it, the learning, the study, the research. They believe that their 5 seconds of research on Google to tell them to take horse dewormer makes as much sense as someone who spent their life in virology. So this disbalance between the belief that your guess is as good as mine is not true. Their guess is not as good as theirs. It's not. If any guess that I would have at anthropology, Stanford, is not going to be as good as yours. It's not. There's no possible way it could be.
Yep.
And as such, if we don't respect those differences, if we don't respect that there are levels to this thing, then yeah, we're descending down a slippery slope into, the fall of the Roman Empire, when several similar things happened exactly the same way. And that, of course, didn't end in horrible bloodshed for millions of people around the world. Oh, wait, it did.
Yep. I mean, so yeah. Speaking of horrible bloodshed,
Segue, love it. Yeah.
let's talk Winter Guard #3.
Okay. You know what? Okay, go ahead, Stanford. Go ahead.
We get this great opening with the new Marvelized version of Dracula that doesn't really look like a vampire that much anymore. He just looks like a weird white guy, which, I guess that qualifies as Dracula.
I mean,
But, and then he has dinner with the Winter Guard. I mean, I actually thought the concept was interesting. When I sat and thought about what was happening was interesting, but then when I actually read it, I was like, eh.
well, here's the thing. This book works if you've read every issue. If you've read every issue, then you should be able to see the tension. You should be able to see the development. So on. This is a culmination issue. I immediately thought when everybody sat down, and I do mean everybody that finally showed up, of when Lando walked Han and Leia and Chewie into the dining room, and Vader and Boba Fett are like there, and we would be honored if you would join us. And those clowns sat down and ate a meal before Han was horribly tortured. But there was food. They sat down. Vader was not like, oh no, I'm gonna go take you off right now. We sitting down to talk. And honestly, that's one of the things that's one of the few regrets that I've never seen that film, because it's in a version of the screenplay, and I've read it, and it's fascinating.
Really?
But yeah, it's Lando, because Lando just sits down and starts eating. He's like, all right, cool. It's amazing. But
you gotta say more about that. That does sound like fun.
Okay, well, Lawrence Kasdan, there's a version of the script where before it was cut, before the shooting script, where Lando's like, oh yeah, Vader and Boba Fett, they showed up and so on and so forth. So, I feel bad about this, but I did have to do it. And Vader's like, mm-hmm. And Leia's like, this is so messed up. And now we supposed to sit here and eat? And then Chewie starts eating. And Han's like, really? I mean, it's both funny and hilarious and evil because, of course, Boba Fett doesn't take off his mask. Vader doesn't take off his mask. They just kind of sit there while other people eat, and they have this very short, very awkward conversation. But to me, it's amazing because I am, steeped in Star Wars that way.
I'll say I would have loved to have seen that. That does sound like
If you
fun.
look up, the original, you could probably Google Cloud City dining room. Like the scene it's. I found it on Google. It wasn't that hard to find. It's really hilarious. You definitely should look it up. But anyway, to that point, that he brings together people who do not want to be together, who do not like each other, who are working at opposing ends, and says, okay, you guys want this thing for your reasons. You guys want this thing. Oh, right. Here it is. I've got it all. It was Dracula all along.
Right.
I've had and I was like, oh, that's funny. That's very funny. So I
I mean,
appreciate the structure, but yes, I
yes.
mean, I want there's a couple of points where a couple of the gods do some threatening rumbles, but then they just kind of sit back and listen. If you're gonna be Russian Thor, who should be drunker and angrier than regular Thor, then be drunker and angrier than regular Thor.
Well, and I was thinking to myself, it's like I think that they like this was a great. This is actually a great comic for a different artist. This was not for an
Oh,
artist who excels at action. I
okay.
mean, I mean, so imagine if the panels were if it was more like a 9-panel format,
Mm-hmm.
and they just went from person to person, like as they ate, and actually really and really parsed out the dialogue. Didn't do like 100 words in a balloon. Like just had them say just a couple of things here there. Keep it moving, keep it moving. Like even in the way you described the Cloud City dining scene, right? Like boom, 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 boom. That would have been more interesting. And because I actually love the idea that like, oh wait, so this is the Red Guardian passing out all these pieces. Oh, and the last piece goes to Dracula. I mean, like that. It was interesting, but it didn't. It was not illustrated in a way that made me feel that. Like I did not feel like they were eating. I felt like the dining, like we had
Well,
this
there was no
scene,
actual food. That was
right?
that was a game.
But that would have been a great comic. What I mean, and so I think that this is one that really needed a different kind of execution, and possibly a different kind of illustrator. And that's not a knock on this illustrator. I actually like the artist,
Yeah,
but
totally.
I don't think that he was the right one for this task. Like this is something where you get somebody who like is really good at doing those scenes where you have to actually tell the faces apart, and there's not a lot of action, right? Like this could have been really interesting, and I think that this is like a really important lesson for even how people make comics. Is
Interesting.
that different types of stories require different kinds of styles.
Interesting, because when you said, somebody who, the first thing I thought about this was Kevin McGuire. Kevin McGuire, whose facial expressions are unbeatable, absolutely unbeatable,
Right.
but can also do action. So I thought about that, and I thought, wow, if this had been a Kevin McGuire book, this would be epic. So yeah,
Or maybe a Greg Smallwood who did Human Target, a book we'll be talking about later, right?
I
I
think
mean,
good catch. Yeah.
you see what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying. It's like that would have made this great because this is really because they should have had this one play out more like a mystery.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah, I do agree now that I would still call this an honorable mention for me. I'll call this an honorable mention because I think Dracula was funny. And I think that the setup was funny and the tension, especially the thing that happened on the last 2 pages, I think is really like, well, let me correct it. It's funny to me because it's not happening to me. Like they always say, it's comedy if it happens to somebody else. It's tragedy if it happens to you. So for me, I'm like, oh, that's great, that's fantastic. But to the character in question, not so much. And with that in mind, I would give it an honorable mention. I do agree with your point that this illustrator was not suited to create the tension in that dining room that was necessary. I will agree with that.
I felt like the illustrator was turning was literally turning sitting scenes into action scenes. Like he kept trying to find the action. And it's like no, this is about tension.
Like when Perun jumps up a little bit. Yeah, I saw that.
Right. On to the next one. Darkhawk #3.
Okay, I gotta admit, I didn't get to this one. My day job meeting. I had 6 hours of day job meetings today, and this one just got away from me. I didn't get to Darkhawk. But to be fair, I wasn't very interested in 1 and 2. So
Yeah, I've never been interested in the character, to be honest. I just thought but I thought I'd give it a try, and I mean, I see what they're trying to do with it. Again, I think that the problem with Darkhawk as a character is there's really not a lot of there.
Yeah, true.
And it's sort of this armored character that has all the derivative effects of other characters. So it's
many
like,
characters.
yeah, I mean, he actually is he's perfect as a toy, and he's really no, I mean, think about it, like
Action
he's
figure would be
perfect.
dope. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's really there. I mean, I feel like he's just like a little like fan service type of character. Now, I think that they're doing something really interesting with the character who is Darkhawk having MS.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting when they bring up the fact that what is going on here, that when he becomes Darkhawk, he's shorter, right? So clearly there's some funky stuff going on. But yeah, this book is kind of a meh for me because they haven't made me they've made me interested in the kid who becomes Darkhawk, but every time he turns into a superhero, it becomes less interesting.
Yeah. In the first 2 issues that I read, there's the story of this young man struggling with the change in his life of getting multiple sclerosis and having all these struggles about what's going to happen to me, my dreams. I was going to play football. I can't do that now, and so on. So, I mean, I get all that, and it was interesting enough. But the second he costumed up, yep, it just sucked the joy out of it. It just completely sucked the joy out of it, and that's probably why, honestly, I wasn't so motivated to move this higher in my reading this week.
Okay, and so let's not dwell on the let's not dwell on the disaster. Let's talk a little bit about we might as well talk about it at the same time: Death of Doctor Strange Avengers and Death of Doctor Strange Academy.
Okay, I liked one. I didn't like the other one. The answer to which
Okay.
may surprise you. Okay, I'll start with the one I didn't like, which was Strange Academy. This was supposed to be an anthology style thing where you focus the camera on one student, focus the camera on another student, right? But most of the book is taken up by the whitest possible boring students in the most boring possible place, because Weird World is supposed to be interesting, but it's not. Weird World is supposed to be essentially Skartaris meets Gym World or something, but it's just not. And watching, personally, watching, the Enchantress, reflect on how bad a mother she is, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that. That's honestly, it's a little too close to a number of things I've seen in my own family, so I didn't like that. But especially because she doesn't actually grow very far. It's like, yeah, I messed up. Anyway, let's go do some stuff. I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
Yep.
But unfortunately, people in real life think that's how this works. So, but more than that, the other students got a page, 2 pages, 1 page. While these clowns got an entire freaking narrative schlepping through not Gym World, Weird World, to try to find this kid. I'm not here for it. I wanted more depth, more richness given to the experiences, more, especially for Doyle, who was stuck at school, but he was just like, I can't go home. I'm stuck here. I mean, the loneliness, the horror that he's feeling, especially given, he was starting this nascent relationship with one of the students. I mean, I was like, give me more of that. That's a thing. That's real emotional resonance. Give me that. Especially because, his dad's Dormammu, so the natural power levels of this kid are already off the chart. So
I'm with you on that. I mean, I want to hear what you think of Avengers before I say, because what I have to say applies to both. So
I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised to like the Avengers book. I was pleasantly surprised to like it. The structure of the plot combined with what they did with the characters, there's a great bit with Iron Man where everything comes full circle for him in a narrative, and he has, which is enormously rare for Iron Man, an actual realization, and he gets something. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I'd never get to see that for him. I like that. And I just liked a lot of the elements to it. As a part of the crossover, I don't care. But if you just said, the Avengers are going to go fight some magic crap, okay, cool. If you'd labeled it as that, I'd been like, this is a pretty good Avengers book. I'm in for it. As a crossover book, it's a good one, but it's not like great. I think this would have been a great if they had slotted this in the actual Avengers run and just taken out the Death of Doctor Strange part and maybe even just tagged it, I think that would have been a better choice.
Yeah, I reading these two books made me see the limit of the whole death of Doctor Strange. So the death of Doctor Strange as an event is really not about the death of Doctor Strange.
True.
I mean, really, the story is all the barriers that keep all the bad mystic stuff out have been opened. That's what it is, and then they use the death of Doctor Strange as a plot device to get us there.
Which kind of seems he's not so good at his job. You really should plan for that.
Exactly. It says he's not as good at his job, but it also says to me that it's kind of like trying to sell me on a story by talking about it's not its A plot, not its B plot, but its C plot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that like I said, you could have done it so many other ways. You could have just incapacitated Doctor Strange in some way. You could have done it so many other ways. But I also think that it leads to having the same story being told over and again. Oh, look, portal opens, something comes through.
Yeah.
There's not even quite enough there for it to even be that remarkable.
That's fair.
Because when you think about it in terms of comic land, right? Portal opens, something scary comes through. That's kind of most of the stories.
Yeah.
That's a large percentage of stories. So I'm trying to figure out what the uniqueness of the event is and what the uniqueness is of this as a series. There's nothing about this that ties it together as even an interconnected storyline, right?
Yeah.
It's like Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? The space-time continuum, everything's merging, right?
Yep.
There was a there, but there's really nothing here there. It's just it's like, oh, we're going to do a crossover where magical people fight. Well, that's just Tuesday in Doctor Strange, right?
Yeah, true.
And then oh, no. But there are going to be magical people coming through a porthole. Oh, yeah, that's Tuesday at 5:35 in Doctor Strange. I mean, there's just not a there for me. And I'm like, how is this How is this something I should be worried about? And then you compound that with the fact that half the stuff coming through the portals is stuff we didn't know about anyway, so we don't have any reason to be scared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, for the Strange Academy book, they shoved Enchantress and one of her sons through a portal while the other one was kidnapped through it. And they go somewhere else to fight something magic, sure, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Most of the students just, I'm just sad at home. So, yeah, that whole book is not a thing. To your other point, and I don't want to spoil this on the Avengers book, something happened, a traumatic experience happened to somebody, and they're trying to communicate that experience. That comes out in a way that people perceive in the worst possible way. And there's a great misunderstanding, smash up, yada yada yada, superhero cliche.
Oh, I did find that element compelling.
But what I'll say here is, like you say, if the goal is to make me care about the death of Doctor Strange, fail. If the goal is to make me care about that specific character, who now I'm very invested in and must be protected at all costs, now I'm like, okay, that's a thing, because something happened there, and that's a real emotional thing that made Tony Stark understand something through his cloud of arrogance and whatever.
I get that, but the problem is ultimately, they're taking they're taking their interesting A plots and reformulating them as D plots in a crossover in which the C plot is being given to us as an A plot. It's just like, by the time I sort through all that confusing mess of like trying to figure out what the heck is going on and why I should care, it actually overshadowed it. I read the same story you did, and by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, what is this? My first thought was, well, that's interesting, but what does this have to do with? And so essentially, my first instinct was to not even like recognize the interesting stuff there. They actually, it's kind of like they went there and took the flavor out of chocolate.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Let's compare and contrast then, since you're an academic. Let's compare and contrast to, say, Hyperion and the Imperial Guard, which was a part of a stupid crossover that made no sense and had nothing to do with it, but was one of the best Legion of superhero stories we've seen in a long time. Or
Right.
Last Annihilation Wakanda, which, truthfully, the crossover, completely forgettable. I don't even remember why they were fighting. But I do know that that issue was really good. So I personally see this as a crossover book that outshines it where it's supposed to be. And
I think it outshined the crossover, but still, they managed to structure this crappy crossover in such a way that they took the shine away from the shiny things.
would you say the same thing happened with Hyperion and the Imperial Guard and with Last Annihilation Wakanda?
No,
What's the difference?
somehow they created a series of plot devices that did not overshadow things to the point where I couldn't enjoy that little bit of brilliance. And that's where I'm coming from on this one. I mean, it was a really weird getting to the end of it, because I got to the end of it, and I was like, oh, this is the story. This is the story here. It has nothing to do with these portholes, really. I mean, and it was just like, I was like, oh, like this is a situation where they managed. I mean, I think what they did was actually, is actually really hard to do, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's really hard to suck the taste out of chocolate.
Well, we're completely not on the same page with at least the Avengers book. So,
And no, I will say the event that was a great story. It was a great story that was hampered by being connected to this storyline.
for me, the connection was so tenuous I could walk by it. I would buy it. My rating on this is buy for Death of Doctor Strange Avengers. But
I'll give Avengers a high honorable mention.
okay, that's fair. And I think I would say meh on the Strange Academy one because it's not so bad that it offends me. But
I can't even give it a meh.
okay.
I felt like I was, and the irony is, I picked up on the same things that you did. It's like the interesting stories at the end,
Yeah.
that were all like one page, but it was just like, I just felt the whole time like I was just like, get me the heck out of here.
Well, let's get out of that review, and because this is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu, we are covering some Marvel books, and what will be next on our hit list here, Stanford?
I'm out of Marvel books. I kind of want to scooch over to DC.
We'll scooch on.
All right, so let's start with the Batman Superman Authority special. Let's get this one out of the way.
I agree. Let's get this one out of the way quickly. Yeah.
Okay, next. Let's talk Human Target.
Okay. Oh, good. We're done. Oh, even better. I stopped to take a drink of water. I was like, okay.
I mean, I think that, I think we got to create a new category for beneath mention.
Oh, well, here's the thing. Okay, so first of all, we know that the Superman and the Authority book was done at a different time, has a different art style, and a whole different thing because the Superman is dressed differently. He's older. All kinds of different shenanigans happen that they have now re-shoehorned into current continuity. This one is fresh from the current continuity with Superman in the clothes you expect with the people that he's recruited to go off to war with him. Sure. And they're fighting in the dark multiverse, which I thought was destroyed in the death metal crossover, but here we go. On a world where...
just like everything old is new again, so everything dead is alive again.
But here's the thing. Here's my main problem with the dark multiverse is it's supposed to be all these things that, universes that should have never happened. But they all have one common theme. And I'm going to spoil this, I don't care. Every death metal, dark universe, and they're not even dark, they're all full of white people. Every continuity goes wrong because of a Batman. Every one. Batman is the common theme in every one. In the same way that I say Tony Stark is the greatest threat to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and as being inherited by Stephen Strange, Bruce Wayne is the greatest threat to comics possible in DC. He's the greatest threat to everybody. Because the second he goes wrong, you get Tower of Babel. The second he goes wrong, you get, Dark Multiverse, Barbatos, and all this shenanigans. I'm like, so when I read this book, I was like, oh, so we're dealing with another one of those, huh? Well, that's really exhausting and unimportant and sad.
Yep.
So yeah, I didn't like it, and I didn't like it, and Morris didn't like it either. I'm gonna put it that way.
Well, all right. So on to Human Target.
Okay.
I thought this was a beautiful book.
It's very pretty.
The art was just amazing, and I actually like the story. This whole idea of like, you know, of a human target like going on a mission and finding out that like, you know, it's actually a classic story where someone's essentially trying to solve their own murder, right?
Yes.
And I think that they have the right art for it. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about the reveal at the end, and I'm a little concerned about the inclusion of Justice League International and all this, but God, this is a pretty book.
It's
I felt it's funny. I felt like I was in another time and another place.
Yeah, I can see that. Here's the thing. One of my friends and I, we were out at a bar one night, and there's this enormously attractive woman that we thought was kind of flirting with both of us. But he called dibs, and I, as a person who respects dibs almost beyond anything else, stood aside. And they start hitting it off. They have some drinks. They have some laughs. They leave together, right? But he catches something from her. And I think this book was kind of like that, where it's really pretty. But in the end, you're not going to really be happy with where you're going.
Wow, we really you went there, didn't you? Oh,
I have to go home sometime. Anyway, so here's the thing. I'm enormously protective of the Bwahaha Justice League. It's some of my favorite comics ever, right? And the idea of bringing them into another Tom King murdered somebody thing and possibly Wally Westing them and turning them into mass murderers or something horrible like that is terrible. And I'm not very happy conceptually of it. If it's just Max Lord, it ends up just Max Lord trying to kill Lex Luthor, fine, whatever. But my I felt that the difference in time period, this felt kind of like a Slam Bradley book to me. If you've ever read
right.
Slam, in terms of theme, in terms of tone, in terms of the hard drinking nature of Christopher Chance, who normally in some other incarnations was very careful about what he did when he was quote unquote on the job. This felt like a detective book that we were just going to throw Christopher Chance into. So
Right.
sure, okay, I get. I've read that this writer tends to say, I want to do a book that does these things. Give me a character. And then he'll just make that character fit. I don't like that, but it's what's happened. I mean, the only time it ever went right was on The Vision, which is a masterpiece.
Right.
So to that end here, I'm hampered by the fact that I read and loved the Peter Milligan Human Target series some years ago, which
Right.
In part inspired the television show, which I also loved quite a bit. And this didn't give me as much of the human target, this quest for identity, I lose myself in these other identities because I don't know who I am.
Right.
I didn't get as much of that. I got, like I said, I felt like this was Christopher Chance shoved into a Slam Bradley story.
Right. I mean, this is definitely a story imposed on the character. I'm gonna still give it. I still give it a. Okay. I am like you. I'm kind of concerned where they're going, but if I have to look at just this book for this book's sake, I have to say bye. If I'm thinking about like the idea that you might be buying more issues of the book, I'm like, give it a low buy, high met, because I think that there is an element to.
Honorable mention, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I meant honorable mention. Because I think that there's a case to be made for Tom King books being an acquired taste in and of themselves. Like I think a lot of people either like Tom King or don't.
Well, here's the thing. I like Tom King as a person, and I've enjoyed, because I've met him, and he's super nice, and he's super cool. And I've been, like I said, I enjoyed a lot of Omega Men, even though it had its flaws. Vision is a masterpiece. I'm insulted by Strange Adventures, and I'm insulted by Heroes in Crisis. So, for me, well, let me put it this way. My friend with that girl who I mentioned, they went out again. So...
There must have been an upside. Oh.
Up, down, back, front. I'm not really sure how it worked, but the point being that I would give this a low honorable mention because I've been hurt before, and I could show you on the book where it hurt me. So I have too many concerns. I mean, I'd be more interested in reading a legit Slam Bradley book, honestly. But I feel this is. I would be better. I would be better. I would be more willing to accept this if I hadn't read the Peter Milligan.
Okay. I feel you on that. I feel you on that. I mean, so moving on. This is going to be a hard conversation.
Come on.
Mr. Miracle, Source of Freedom, number 6.
This is going to be because I believe we don't agree on this book. I believe we have disparate perceptions on this book.
You think?
I do. This has been a rocky road. I'm not gonna lie. This has been a rocky road, but I want to be on this road because the underlying concept, I believe, is really clever and really something that's not been considered with Mr. Miracle. This issue finally answered the question of Never Free, which is something I've been trying to figure out since the first issue. So I appreciated that. This issue gave me a really great emotional beat or 3 that I really enjoyed a lot, and I appreciated seeing in a book like this because I don't often get them. And I think that the final disposition of it, in as much as it put things back in the toy box the way they need to be, I thought was really clever. And structurally, this issue stood where other issues may have stumbled in that regard. I appreciated that. I appreciated the methodology through which he was able to overcome this threat, and yeah, I appreciate the like when I closed the book, I was like, oh, I like the way that made me feel. Okay, all right, cool. So for me, it may not be the strongest buy, but I would definitely make this a buy recommendation. You.
I mean, I'll stick it in the buy pile, but it's got a low buy. I feel like this is one of those instances where it was a great story, but they didn't stick the landing. And like as far as the whole issue of answers, I mean, as I was reading this, I'm like, I have a PhD and quite a few years of comic reading under my belt, and I'm having trouble understanding what the answer is here.
Okay.
And I get that there's like this conflict between and these questions about legacy, right? What does legacy propel us to do? I get all of that, but I felt like this was similar to what we talked about with Winter Guard. I felt like we got to a point in this story where we needed a different type of storytelling to really allow it to play out.
I will say, I think the colors were a little busy.
I think the colors. I think, in general, it was really busy. I think that it was. I think that we needed to have some panels that were designed to help us read, not just to make explosions happen. And so that was kind of rough for me. I thought the way certain characters from Shiloh's life come in, it just felt like it felt kind of tacked on to me. I mean, a lot of stuff happened here that I wanted to have happen, but I felt like this is the last issue that was not as great as the issues that preceded it, and that's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, we did disagree on some earlier issues that you thought that I had more of a problem with than you did. So
right.
It's interesting to see that opinion seesaw here at the end.
Yeah, I still recommend buying the entire series, right?
I think it will work better collected. I think that.
But there's a couple things I'm still not sure if I understand how. I'm not sure if I really understand Never Free that much.
Oh, she's from the future.
I get that she's from the future, but that doesn't. That still doesn't answer some of the continuity things. I guess if she's far enough from the future, anything could have happened to create her. But
well, no, the problem is that her. Okay, and I'm not gonna lie, this was not easy, and this is a spoiler. Sorry, so cover up your ears in 3, 2, 1. So she, in coming back to the present, her effect on the timeline was that she began to erase the things from the timeline that made her possible. So if she had never done this, she would have never had a problem. She began to erase her own legacy. She began to erase her own person. She began to erase herself from the timeline with her own actions.
Right.
And the reason why we don't remember her, because she wasn't there. Because she, according to causality, she always
She had
did this.
right, because she had also already erased the existence that we needed to know about to have a better understanding of her.
Which makes her name Never Free.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, but I didn't feel like the storytelling came together to get that to me. I mean, I felt like I had to work way too hard. But I think it's like Winterguard. It's not that the writer and artists were bad, right?
Yep.
I thought, but I just felt like something got lost in translation, and they weren't able to be better than the sum of their parts.
Okay. Well,
I think that the real challenge here was really for the artist to kind of was really to the artist more so than the writer, and I think that they didn't pace this in a way to highlight what needed to be highlighted. I don't think that the text was quite what needed to be there to make it work. Like it does matter when, where, and how you do your exposition to make a story understandable in comics.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, Mr. Miracle and the Source of Freedom, I've had concerns about the pacing. I
Right.
said that, the whole Oberon thing was really rushed in issue 4 or 5 or wherever he came in. And now I believe it's evened out. Is it late in the game for that to happen? Sure. But likewise, I don't really believe that the periodical format did a great service to this story.
Right.
It's not for everybody. Everything doesn't need to be a monthly comic. I think if this had been an OGN straight through without the need for the breaks for the monthly thing, I think it would be a much more coherent experience in that regard.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm still willing to buy it.
Yeah. I mean,
We should move on.
yeah. I was gonna say this one thing. I do want to see more Shiloh Norman. I want to see more Shiloh.
Yeah, I can dig that. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter, noted comics anthropologist, and myself, Hannibal Tabu, head comics reviewer at bleedingcool.com. We've covered some Marvel books, Winterguard. I actually don't remember most of them. But we Death of Doctor Strange, Strange Academy, we went into some stuff. We're on the DC side of the table now. We just did Mr. Miracle, The Source of Freedom. So what's next, Stanford?
Hello.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So what's next? Oh, my connection's getting weird. That's odd.
Season 1, number 4.
Sitting right next to the router. Which book, huh?
Icon and Rocket.
Oh, Icon and Rocket. All right. What do you think about Icon and Rocket then?
I loved it. This was amazing. Mm-hmm. This made my reading experience for the day. Icon and Rocket, when Milestone originally came out, I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite Milestone book. This is just like on a whole other level.
Yeah.
And I like that Icon's nemesis is essentially Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, it is.
Spoiler. And I think that well, no, I mean that's page 2. That's actually page 1, right?
Spoiler if you haven't read the book.
Okay. But no, I like the idea. But this idea that he's being hunted by an alien, and it's like, and he's shapeshift.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
My signal dropped out on you for a second, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I said that is just freaking amazing, and I just I thought that was great. I thought that the whole stuff with Rocket and Icon talking more about like, well, what's he really trying to do with Rocket? What's he really training her for, right? I think that this whole thing with his character Ziamora, right? I mean, it's really amazing, and I really liked what they did, and they did it with so few pages. I thought that the way in which they told us so much with so few pages, with so little, we didn't have to, we didn't have to sit through a 6-issue miniseries to get this much storytelling for once.
True.
And I think that, I mean, it's funny because when we talk about some of the other books that are really great, we talk about Green Lantern, right? How that's the other thing that they're doing. It's like I think that I'm starting. It's very obvious there's starting to be a formula for winning comics, and this fits well within it.
Well, I would definitely note that in both those cases, these are movie and TV people who have come to comics. They understand pacing. They understand economy. They understand this is how much space we got to tell the story, guys. Let's get this done. So,
Right.
I appreciate that discipline. In this regard, I love this book as well. The biggest difference for me here is that Icon in the 90s, when Milestone originally came out, was a very clearly conservative icon. Intentionally said so. That he was right-wing in his beliefs. He was a real pull-yourself-up-by-the-bootstraps sort of person. He didn't really believe in a lot of the more left-leaning concepts. This is an activist icon. This is an icon who says, I tried to end slavery. I tried. I was in it. And then I got my face punched in, and then I started to make a plan. This is an icon who has the best interests of black people in mind because they're in his best interest overall.
Right.
And that's a remarkable shift in terms of ideology. It's also a shift in terms of intention because when putting together adaptations or whatever, that changes how this icon will interact with the world compared to the original one. So that's first. Second, that I love the thoroughness that this icon has. When they, and I'm sorry, this is a mild spoiler, when they head up to his secret base, he's like, you got a secret base? He's like, of course I got a secret. I've been there a while. What do you think I've been doing?
Right. I got nothing but time.
This is an icon which has a plan, whereas the conservative icon of the past was waiting and hoping. This is an icon that's acting and doing, and that's actually super engaging. Now, does that take something away from the original? I don't necessarily believe so, but I do believe it's super entertaining for what we have here. And seeing, and don't get me wrong, he's still somewhat concerned. He's still like, I'm still trying to make this money. I'm still trying to get my game together. But he's not necessarily, this is not an icon that would be quoted by Clarence Thomas, as the original one was. And seeing that happen is an interesting difference. And I believe giving me a much more dynamic play because this icon is willing to act globally. He's willing to say, nope, getting on my little plane, loading you in, and we're going to go shut down poppy fields in Asia. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing today. Okay, come on, let's go.
But I love how he's doing it to make a point, though. He's like, he's like, let's destroy the poppy seeds, and it's very obvious that he knows that when you do it, you're gonna fuck up the economy. But he's like, he's kind of like, well, okay, Rocket, let's go do this, and then we'll see what happens. But I actually like that element of it, right? That like he gets. I like that he gets what he's doing, like and right. What happens when the whole world is your teaching space, right? Yes. And I think that's one thing that's really fun about this. I mean, this book is solidly in my buy list. Let's just,
especially once you see what the lesson is trying to teach and why to Raquel, and then on top of that, the one-liner, "Mama, don't use my government name." I mean, there's so many little moments in Icon and Rocket Season 1, Number 4 that are so engaging. I'm like, okay, you've got me really interested in these characters and what's happening to them and what's going on. And then when you flip that to the other side, there's this secretive cabal of people on one side that's like, oh no, we have a bunch of evil, super-powered people that we're going to send out to do some stuff. And, there's a completely different cadre that says we should recruit. And the placing of these different parties is so interesting to me. And I'm a continuity dude. You know that.
Right.
So for me, this is like, yes, give it, put it right directly into my eye holes. I want this. I want to go to there. Yes, 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 yes. So for me, I'm really enjoying this Icon book a lot. I'm really enjoying a lot of things they're doing, and it's a pleasant surprise because it's absolutely, as I say, not your father's Icon.
Right. So, I mean, I say we go to the Independents. We're running out of time.
Let's
We
go.
technically are out of time. Let's start with A Thing Called Truth. What did you think?
A Thing Called Truth. I didn't read that one. That was one of yours. That was on your list.
Yeah, I read it. Great title, great art. I think there's an interesting concept there, but I'm not sure what. It's giving me a lot of Thelma and Louise vibes, but not, just in terms of, women on a road trip in a car. And I feel like, I don't know why it's giving me those vibes, because there's not a lot there in there, but it's giving me those vibes. But I'm still kind of intrigued by it. I just feel like I sat through an issue that, an entire comic that should have been just the first 3 pages.
So what's the rating?
Meh.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do that. I did the Me You Love in the Dark, and oh boy.
I was going to save that for last, but okay, let's do this.
Let's save it. No. Okay. What else is on the list? Let's go.
What about Newburn #1?
Newburn #1, I did read. I was very interested in it. It was very similar to what Warren Ellis was trying to do with Fell, but this kind of walking the lines between crime and law enforcement, this kind of walking the lines between right and wrong, and trying to find a balance between them was very well done, very well presented. The art is gorgeous. I love it, love it, love it. And a lot of the kind of, flourishes and weird elements that Chip Zdarsky sometimes has put into some of the other work is not here. This is straight ahead. This is like, yo, I'm telling the story. Who will get the story told? Come on, let's do this.
Yeah. I liked it. I know this is going to sound bad, but I felt like the word I would use to describe this is basic.
Yeah.
Right?
It's solid.
It does everything that it's supposed to do. Like, it's that one-trick pony. It's that incredibly competent one-trick pony. I do think that it's got, but it does have an interesting hook, right? This guy who works for all of the mobs,
yeah.
Right? I'm like, oh, okay. I as I was reading it, before I got to that part, I got to say I was like, why am I reading this, right? Okay. I think that I felt like this was a frigid start. You know what I mean? Like the way it started, I didn't know why I needed to be there, what was interesting about it. I needed a little more at the beginning. But once it got going about halfway through, then it was interesting. And so that would be my critique, because I felt like there was only half a comic here.
Okay.
But I thought that the half that was there was really good. So I put it in I'll give this a high honorable mention. With the sort of caveat that I'm definitely buying the next issue.
Well, I can't say what I'm definitely doing because I'm not that kind of psychic, but this would also be an honorable mention for me. I think this is like a solid sixth man comic. Like it's not gonna be one of your starters, but like it'll come off the bench, it'll get you some rebounds, it'll take care of some business that you need to do.
Yeah.
But Newburn it's not gonna be a starter comic yet. Now, if I see something next month that changes my tune, great. Let's see what happens. But again, I'm not that kind of psychic. Right now, the book that I have to go with this is, a very solid, clever, interesting concept that executes well enough. It didn't fall down his face, but it's not gonna be a sports center.
Right.
So yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. What about, it was a long read. What about No Ghost in Hiroshima?
That one I didn't get to because it was too long. I was like, oh, there's too many pages. I don't have time for this week.
Well, I took the plunge.
You're a giver.
Yep. You know what? I'm going to say right up front, I can give it an honorable mention. Mm-hmm. I think that, I felt like there's a really interesting story here. I felt like the art was a little inconsistent.
Yep.
and I felt like the storytelling was a little inconsistent. Like I didn't have really much of an idea of where this was going until, I mean, was it like 90 pages? I think I didn't have an idea of what was happening really till 40.
That's not
you
good.
know and again, I think that this is becoming a bigger problem, because I think people are the creators are in love with the wrong parts. you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
I actually don't think this needed to be a 90-page story. I think you could have told this in 45 or 50 pages.
Okay.
But when you got to the end, I thought there was something really interesting in the end. But I feel like throughout this entire book we jumped like three different genres,
Ooh.
and we thought it was multiple different things, and that was a little bit hard for me.
And not in a good way, like Lovecraft Country.
Correct.
Okay.
Because they didn't really give me enough at the beginning to give me a sense of like what the common thread was. So imagine you're reading a story that tops genres with a common thread, but you don't know what the common thread is.
Ooh. Okay.
So that can be kind of rough. But it had some really great concepts. I'm intrigued to see what this creative team does next. I think that this could have worked in some other formats as well. But we got what we got, and I give it an honorable mention.
All right. Cool. Cool. Then what's next? Let's try lightning round this.
Let's do Stranger Things holiday special
Didn't read that one.
or
Sorry.
winter
I still
special.
haven't even watched the second season. Finished like the third season of it. I'm still working on it. I'm way behind.
Yeah, I thought that this was this. This is gonna sound bad. When I read it, I felt like I was reading something that was made out of obligation, and I felt my reading of it was obligatory.
That's a review enough for me. Let's move on. Oh wow.
I mean, it had my favorite. It had these characters in there. It had these references, and it was really just them explaining how like holiday specials to, and different different holiday specials Scrooge, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, all those different stories. It was basically them telling their weird versions of it,
Pass.
but it was really them telling it. It really wasn't a lot of them showing it. So it's just like, okay, so this is like 50 pages of just talking.
Pass.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I'm ready to end it on the Me You Love in the Dark, number 4.
You Love It. The Dark is so weird. I love it. This book, I literally spent the entire book. You know that expression where like that meme where Kermit is like biting his fingernails, like, oh no, oh no, oh no. That was me the entire book in the best possible way. Normally, I hate horror. I hate that sort of thing. But I couldn't turn away. After I sat down, I couldn't stop thinking about it. This book is riveting. I love this book, and I want it to let me go, but it won't let me go, and that's so fitting for this book. It's amazing.
Right. Yep. I think that yeah, I mean this book, I mean, like last episode was just like, it was like, oh my gosh, it's a love story. This episode, oh my gosh, like every time you think it's a horror story, but every issue is really something else. You think it's a you think it's a monster story, and this one was like, oh, this took a turn.
Yeah, it did.
This took a really dark turn, but it
Yeah,
took
it
a
did.
really dark turn by doing something it took a much more ordinary evil that we encounter that people in relationships encounter all the time,
Yeah.
and imprinted it on something that should have been spectacular, and still had the ordinary come out. And I know that sounds really twisty, but
It works.
I was like, oh, like all of a sudden, this monster that lives in the dark and is just, disembodied teeth and suckers and all the things that make us uncomfortable, that we thought was going to destroy her. And now we're like, oh my God, he is destroying her in a way that that like, we don't need to be in a monster, and we don't need to be in a monster movie for it to happen. I'm just like, oh,
Well said.
I'm like this is actually doing some stuff that only comics can do.
True. Yeah.
You
I
know,
don't think this
like
would work in a movie. Yeah, you're right.
right. I don't think you can make it work in a movie, but I think that you know, I mean, yeah, it's just this is an amazing book.
Yeah, it's really something, and I'm terrified to see it end. Like the closer we get to it, because I know I think it's only 6 issues. The closer we get to it, I keep going, oh no, oh no. Like I'm being dragged towards the ending, but I love it. I love being dragged toward the ending.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I am so like I'm speechless. It's like this is. It's also what a horror comic can be. It does all, like I said, it does all the things. It does some things in horror that you couldn't do in horror in any other genre.
True.
It wouldn't work as I don't think it would work as a novel. I don't think it would work as animation. I don't think it would work as television, a movie. But it works as a comic, and it works really well.
Agreed. All right, well, that's another strong buy for the two of us. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu. This will be on YouTube as soon as I can get to it. I promise. I've got a lot of stuff going on the weekend, but I'll try to get it done. And, yeah, we thank you for joining us. Please click the It's Complicated Club icon above my head and join to find out when we're doing new stuff. We're moving to Fridays. Fridays is going to be our new regular time, we think, if my job will agree to it, because I have 6 hours meetings today. But yeah, so thanks for joining us. Any last words, Stanford, before we go?
You know, I mean, keep your head up and keep reaching for the stars.
Aspirational and inspirational. I
I don't even know why that came to me.
Because what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's why.
Exactly. And Icon and Rocket.
Hey! All right. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. This has been Comic Books This Week with the It's Complicated Club on YouTube and Clubhouse. See ya.
All right, have a good one.